Well, hello there, and welcome back to the All Around Growth Podcast. Today is Thursday, February 17th, 2022. My name is Rob Kaiser, and I am your host. Thank you for tuning back into the show today. Today is an audience feedback show. And without going into the specifics of the feedback that I received, the long and short of it is, you need to write stories about what you do around the farm with your dad and share them on your podcast page. And you know what? You're right. There has been a lot of content over the past year that has been less oriented towards tools and resources to build the homestead of your dreams. And it's been a lot of reflecting and insight on life. And that's been necessary. But I can stay there, or we can talk about, applicable things. And that message received just the other day, February 15th, as a matter of fact, a couple days ago, got me thinking. In the past, we had talked about the commercial kitchen in depth, as a matter of fact. And as I looked back, the very first episode where we talked about building a commercial kitchen, part 1, was episode 109, released on March 2nd, 2021. I'll link to that in the show notes. And as I review the notes, just to give you a brief synopsis of what that episode consists of, the idea was that we were going to have a multi-part series on building a commercial kitchen, anywhere from 3 to 5 episodes. And the general premise of the show was, or this series was, to learn how to build a low-cost commercial kitchen space. And when I mean low cost, I'm talking probably around $3,000, which isn't bad. And in my mind at that time, I was thinking of, 5 parts, like a backstory, how we ended up here. Part 2, framing in the commercial kitchen. Part 3, finishing the room. Part 4, inspections with your county or your state Department of Agriculture. And then part 5, a conclusion. Okay, so we got through part 1 on March 2nd, 2021. And then we had part 2 on March 12th, 2021. That was episode number 117, Building a Commercial Kitchen Part 2, where we talked about framing out the kitchen and a lot of details on the space there. Notes on parts lists, bottom plates, studs, the quantities that we had, the plywood. And then we alluded to the next episode where we would talk about insulation, interior walls, the fiberglass reinforced paneling that we used, the electrical, and some of the cost estimates. Whatever happened to episode 3? Or part 3? That's a good question. It never happened. So here we are. February 17th, 2022. 11 months after part 2. So where are we with regard to the commercial kitchen? earlier, we talked about in that part one, the backstory, and part two would be framing. Part three would be finishing the room. Well, the room is just about finished. And it's been finished for quite some time. As I think about this now, that was the big project last year. And it's been done for several months now. Dad has been in there. We are not officially working out of the space because of the inspections. But it is a fully functional space. There are some additional wiring things that we need to do, some additional outlets that need to be installed. But it's been done for a few months, and we are thinking ahead about what we're doing with the rest of the space in the barn, and that has been on everybody's mind lately. The shelving projects in there and moving things around. So rather than get into that today, I'm going to give a shout out to Wayne for sending me that message and saying that, or encouraging me to write little stories about what we do around here and share them on the page. Because apparently some of that appears to be educational and entertaining. And I don't want to read his message here, directly, but it was encouraging, like the how-to of how we do things around the home, providing content, and so on and so forth. And so what's weird to me about this, okay, and to provide a little bit of context perhaps as to why I don't do that more often, is because there's a lot going on around here, but my direct involvement with it oftentimes is limited. I'm frequently working in some sort of support capacity. For example, I used to cut the grass as part of overall homestead maintenance and management, right? But because there was enough time being devoted to other support tasks and my day job, I began outsourcing that, initially for payment, and then negotiating some sort of a barter strategy that was mutually beneficial for both the guy cutting the grass and myself. So bear with me as if there's some background noise. I think we're going to be doing some work next door in the kitchen, but where I'm going with this is my involvement with that particular task was indirect at this point. I wasn't doing the work. At some point in the past, I was growing some produce along with some help from mom and dad. And I was doing most of that in 2016, 15, I guess. And then we stopped, and I told them I couldn't do it. It was very hard for me, and I kind of went through this burnout phase, and that was very difficult. So for a couple of years, we just didn't really grow produce at all. And then Ken Rowe and Cody entered the picture, and they've been farming with us and growing produce and making use of the land. So we are generating produce here, some of which I'm eating, but it's almost like I'm engaging in a CSA share where I'm supporting Cody as he supports me with produce. Same thing with mom and dad. Mom is the one that makes the bulk of the soaps, bath and body products, I should say. Dad makes the kraut. I am doing the marketing, helping out with market. And before I helped out in the past, but it was basically loading up, unloading, offloading, and helping set up sometimes at the market, but it didn't really require three of us to run a market, especially the past 2 seasons at the VFW, due to the logistics and the setup inside. So I spent more time at home working on other things. And especially, this last year with the completion of the commercial kitchen project. So I guess we are involved with a lot of things. And even though I'm not, I oftentimes feel like, even with the kitchen, I do a lot of the grunt work, a lot of the simple stuff, a lot of the single person jobs, which oftentimes are it's the suck work, but that's what it takes. And it's all part of the job. My brother is the one who does a lot of the detail work. He does a lot of the design, the electrical. He's good like that. And I seem to recognize everything that everyone else is doing. And while I recognize my own strengths in for lack of a better term, the management of it all, I oftentimes feel as though that doesn't really seem like work. So what this message that I received from Wayne, what this is encouraging me to do as well, is reframe my perspective about the work that I do, how I do it and why, and also spend some time on revisiting what I was doing with the content created back in March of last year during part 1 and part 2 of building a commercial kitchen, and get back to it with part 3, because, well, not only is that content that is educational and entertaining as I go ahead and assemble that, but it will also be encouraging for me to work on something and bring something that I've worked on to completion. And Wayne, this shout out to Wayne. This message was in a timely context, because if we actually do this series, part 1, backstory, how we ended up here, part 2, framing in the commercial kitchen, part 3, finishing the room, part 4, inspections with your state, county, and Department of Agriculture, and part 5, the conclusion. This is going to be appropriate timing because the room is done. Yes, it's been done for several months, but we are getting to a point where we are preparing for inspections with the county and the state. And I've talked about this with Dad, but what's going to be interesting is to talk about it a little bit more and share it with you. So, guys, I'll link to those episodes, part 1 and part 2, in the show notes. and I will start working on part 3. And hopefully, as time goes on this year in 2022, there will be more content directly related to the homestead, directly related to building it with my family. And I think that's going to be beneficial for everyone, myself included, and you. So Wayne, thanks for the suggestion. Guys, if you've got any other comments, feedback, or anything you'd like to recommend or suggest, feel free to give me a shout through Telegram, or if you're not on Telegram, you are always welcome to message me through Facebook or directly via email at allaroundgrowth.com. And I always look forward to your messages. I appreciate them as well. They get me thinking differently, and I appreciate it. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you.